Right, guys, we are back and we are going to be talking all things engine today. How to build your engine, how to use nutrition, and a little bit of advice on manipulating your training and environment to make sure that you are getting the most out of your engine, building that aerobic and anaerobic base. So we're going to start with a little bit of science and talk about some principles, approaching your first session, approaching your second session. And then we're going to talk a little bit about foods and supplements. Engine bias nutrition and endurance nutrition is a huge topic, guys. Okay, so what we're going to do is just going to kick off and try and simplify things a little bit. We're going to do doing future videos where we delve into a little bit more of the science and the technicalities. But this is going to just give you an intro and some really kind of good take home points. So the first thing is that when we think about building our engine, it's a bit of a kind of, you know, like a motorway where we've got one lane is the aerobic lane and the aerobic capacity, and the other one is the anaerobic and the anaerobic threshold. And you know, this graph here just shows us that when we're trying to focus on endurance training, there obviously we work at different intensities. Okay, so what we do is when we're in a lower intensity, okay, maybe zone 1, zone 2 and stuff, very low volume, low, you know, like, so we're not hammering it. There is a predominantly the energy source comes from fat. Okay, so there is a tiny bit of carbohydrates that are used. This differs between everybody, by the way. But as the intensity increases, you can see there's this, you know, this change. As the intensity goes up, carbohydrate utilization goes up, and fat utilization comes down. This is just a general principle that the body can't produce energy from fat quickly enough, so it needs carbohydrates. Where this inflection point happens is very much down to numerous factors, and this is what we want to be talking about today. We want to be shifting this so you can utilize carbohydrates or spare carbohydrates to higher intensities and utilize fats more efficiently. So we've got two things we want to talk about today. The aerobic threshold, basically, this is where you're in the upper limit of where you can use the oxygen, and you don't end up building up this kind of hydrogen ions and lactate, so you can potentially kind of keep training for a longer period of time. And then the anaerobic threshold is basically where the highest exercise intensity that you can sustain, okay, for a prolonged period of time before you end up falling off the cliff and getting all that lactate in a horrible, you know, acidic environment. So the threshold is what we want to do. We want to work that and push that up. And now, guys, look, we're not here to talk about how to train, you know, and teach you. You just need to be following the damn program. But we're going to be following giving you some nutrition advice here. Okay, so this is the aerobic threshold. This is the anaerobic threshold. Okay, now it's not as very clear cut. There's a lot of interplay in between here. But Tom, just give us some examples of like some low intensity stuff, or maybe some sample sessions, or you know, what you kind of do when you do, you know, working on your aerobic stuff and more anaerobic stuff.
Yeah, low intensity could be as simple as just moving. So like on a rest day, like going out for a walk, like a walk for an hour. It could be, you know, on the Thursday in the programming, there's often that kind of active recovery day. So something you should be able to do, might get you a bit warm, a bit sweaty, but you know, you should be able to comfortably talk. You know, if we use like a 1 to 10 scale, it's kind of like 1 to 3 out of 10. You know, it should be very, very comfortable. Shouldn't have any impact on, you know, recovery. If anything, it can promote recovery. But it's almost like you know, we just want to think about you know, it's going to kind of, like say, unlock a key to help you get to the next level all the time. So the more time you spend in a lower state, that can help you when you then go up a gear and unlock the kind of key to the next level of like moderate to high intensity. So this should still be kind of repeatable efforts, you know, whether we're looking at intervals, whether we're looking at kind of, you know, 30 to 40 minutes of solid work. It should be whether that's just on one bit of kit, or we've got, let's say, aerobic, anaerobic intervals. We might have barbells and gymnastics in there as well, but we should be still able to kind of spit and talk and get some kind of words out. It shouldn't be flat out, and we should spend the majority of our time training in this area. We don't want to be spending all our time absolutely kind of smashing ourselves in that top right, in that, you know, furthest bit to the right there, that kind of anaerobic threshold. We think like high intensity is always better. But actually, we kind of, again, we need to earn the right to spend time there by spending more time doing that kind of aerobic, anaerobic. So then when it comes around to competitions or qualifiers or the open, then when we need to pull the pin, we've got that kind of next gear and next level to go in.
Yeah, that's a really good point, guys. Like, obviously Steve and the guys will, Jack and the guys will be talking about the importance of following the program like it is, and there will be a lot of stuff about building aerobic base, because it has a massive impact and correlation in terms of weightlifting as well, recovery in between workouts, recovery intra workouts, if you're doing chippers and stuff like that. So Tom's absolutely right. Don't be thinking that you just, to build your engine, that you need to be constantly working at this anaerobic threshold. We need to be doing this aerobic work, because look, the goal of what we want to do from a nutrition point of view is to be metabolically flexible. Okay. Now, this isn't just some weird nutrition term that we've kind of, chucking at you. Like, it's basically the ability to utilize carbs and fats effectively and efficiently at different intensities. Now, going back to what Tom said, we don't want to be smashing. If I just go back to that slide, we don't want to be utilizing carbohydrates at very low intensities. So if we are burning through our muscle glycogen or circulating carbohydrates when we're doing work that isn't really that hard, then what happens when we get to this point, when we really need carbohydrates, when we should be almost solely using carbs? Then we're going to feel that time where we're going to be staring at the bar or staring at the dumbbell, going, there is no way I want to pick that up because I've got nothing left in the tank. Whereas if we're metabolically flexible, and actually we can still use fats very efficiently at these lower intensities, we can do something called spare muscle glycogen. Okay, so we basically spare it and we use it later for when we actually really need it, because we cannot use fats at this high intensity. Okay, so that's the aim of what we want to be doing with nutrition and the way that we manipulate your setup. So we want to preserve muscle glycogen for more intense work. We want to improve your recovery capacity in WODs, in competitions. It also allows us to be to have better body composition control. Okay, if you're metabolically flexible, you can utilize fats and carbohydrates at an efficient time. It helps us to manipulate body composition a little bit more, potentially a little bit more insulin sensitive, so you can store carbohydrates more efficiently. It's an easier way to have your kind of body composition set up. So that's a really good thing. And look, it's better for your overall health if we're, if we're burning through our carbohydrates when we're just going for a stroll around the park, then it's probably not the best thing to be doing, because you're going to be creating the byproducts to doing that. So look, the key for nutrition and improving your engine is, for us, the manipulation of carb, fats, and potentially calories. Okay, so we're going to delve into that right now. Look, this graph, really simplified version of it. Okay, it's a lot more complex than this, but it gives you an idea of what to do. Now, when we've got 2 sessions today, this is something that we need to kind of work on. Okay, so look, how to improve our engine. So we want to be talking about the aerobic capacity first. Okay, your aerobic threshold, so that lower bit, the first part of the graph. Okay, so some of you might have heard of training low. So training low, competing high. So basically, when we say training low, it means in a low glycogen state or a low carbohydrate state. Okay, now there's lots of different kind of scientific principles about why we do this, and we'll delve into these in future videos. We can train fasted, okay, because these two basically prevent you from having circulating carbohydrates. They keep insulin very low. As soon as you eat carbohydrates, insulin is elevated at some level, and that prevents you from burning fat, stops lipolysis. So that, therefore, it's very hard to kind of use fat as an energy source or tap into it efficiently. You're still going to use it, but we don't want to be primarily using carbohydrates. Okay, it's like giving the car some fuel before you're just going to nip around a corner. Don't necessarily need that. So we want to be doing that. Tom, you train sometimes in a low state, low glycogen state, train fasted. You do, zone 1 to 2 work, or what kind of sessions do you do when you do that?
It will either be, I'm quite comfortable running. again, because I've spent a lot of time running. So I know for some people find running tough and it will spike their heart rate. But because I've spent a lot of my life pounding the pavements, I know that I can run for 30, 40 minutes. I can control my heart rate. I can control my breathing. So I can use that as a kind of as an option for me to do some kind of low intensity work. Or if the session on the programming is kind of, that kind of 6, 8, 10 minutes of work with like 2 to 3 minutes rest, for kind of 3 rounds, that kind of half an hour of, maybe it's across all different Concept 2 machines or whatever, some body weight movements. I know those kind of sessions where I can focus on just moving well, keeping my heart rate in a comfortable kind of talkative way. Like say it's aerobic, it's repeated bouts. I don't feel like I'm redlining. Again, it's kind of, I think of it as a way to kind of tap in and kind of make my overall fuel tank a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So that, yes, I can train low. And these are kind of sessions, again, they're not like maxing out sessions. They're not like performance sessions. They're just sessions to kind of get some good groundwork, some good base work in, a couple of times a week.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll touch on training low a little bit later. And we've got a link to an article as well. But Tom said there about improving your fuel tank, like the size of it. That's what training low does, training in a fasted state. It can do that. It's done correctly. But it can also make your fuel tank a lot more efficient. And so these little things called mitochondria and all of the little kind of mechanisms in there, you train in this lower state, you're basically stressing your body. You're asking it to work a little bit harder to upregulate its own kind of mechanisms. So you get a slightly bigger engine, but you also get a more efficient engine, okay, if done correctly. But making sure that we are doing it in the, the kind of zone 1, 2, 2, like Tom said, like that kind of lower intensity. But look, you can improve your aerobic capacity and threshold just by consistently training, like genuinely following the program consistently will help you improve your aerobic capacity and threshold. You can lose it relatively quickly. We've all kind of felt that when we maybe taken 2, 3, 4 weeks off and the first few sessions back, and it becomes hard to kind of get your engine back. Like you need to kind of constantly be ticking over and then have times when we really push it. So generally training, guys, is the main thing. Don't worry about these little nuances. Just make sure that you're following the consistent program. That's the key thing. And there are specific foods and supplements, again, which we're going to be talking about that improve aerobic and your anaerobic capacity. So look, training fasted, like Tom, you spoke about this before, adaptive and performance sessions is something that we use at PH to help people to kind of manipulate especially when the programming on JST. Look, talk through, what you do, give the guys a little bit of guidance in terms of maybe how to get the most out of their week, potentially, in terms of when they should be, if they aren't already, or maybe if they do, how to train fasted correctly.
Yeah, so those adaptive sessions, again, they're not performance sessions. So they're simply sessions that's like, say, it's lower intensity or it's lower volume. We know that if you're hammering both sessions, it's going to lead to suboptimal performance and particularly probably suboptimal recovery. And then those sessions, then when you want to push, say it's like, it's like maxing out on Friday or a super Saturday, you've just got nothing kind of left in the tank. It could also be maybe adaptive, could be something to use maybe in like deload weeks again that are built into the program. So that's an opportunity to, I always think maybe a little bit of trial and error. Like if you've not maybe trained fasted before, like deload week, because the overall volume of the whole week is going to be less. So you're going to maybe feel if you're struggling to deal with it in the recovery, like it's going to impact your overall lifting a little bit less as well, potentially.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think you're absolutely right there. Like you've got to identify when, like we said before, when to pull the pin, when to be like, right, this is my performance sessions through the week. And then you might want to be fueling for those a little bit more. For us, training fasted, there are going to be sessions over the week that are slightly lower volume. Or on days that are maybe recovery days or deload week, where we would advise, if you're not training fasted, is to start doing it then. Okay, there's some real big benefits which we're going to go into in a future video about training fasted, about, say, building the efficiency of your engine at a cellular level, and you can do this by training fasted. Then when there's maybe in the programming when you've got to hit a certain intensity or you've got to really push, look, even if you train first thing in the morning, that's when you might want to fuel that, you know, use the advice on the hub to be able to maybe put some liquid nutrition in prior to this and fuel that session, because again, it's performance that we're focusing on. We're not worrying about the adaptation because we've done that over a period of time. That's the time you've got to perform. Okay. So again, don't be thinking, oh, I always train fasted. I'm just going to train fasted every single time. Be thinking about the type of session. Use it like days, recovery days, away from comps and deload weeks is a really great time, guys. Look, we're going to touch on caffeine and essential amino acids and branch chain amino acids. These can basically help to spare muscle glycogen, prevent muscle breakdown. So you might want to be starting to utilize those prior to training fasted as well. Also, if you've never trained fasted, getting up and just taking some water and going is sometimes quite hard mentally. Like taking a bit of caffeine beforehand always is always nice. So definitely think about the week and looking at when you can put in one of these adaptive sessions and potentially train fasted and get the benefits of it. Now, there's a lot of text here, I realize, guys. I just wanted to touch on, there's lots of different studies on this, okay, training low, but this one's really applicable. So one study showed that, look, if you see here, they trained in a low glycogen state, okay? It showed lower performance during the sessions, okay, who understood in a fed state, high glycogen, okay? So this straight away goes adaptive performance. So if you're looking at performance, it shows straight away that you need to undertake in a high glycogen state. So get those carbohydrates in. But after 3 weeks, several markers of training adaptation were increased in the guys that trained in a low glycogen state. So you've got to play the long game with fasting, training fasted, okay? It's a really great thing to do if you do it correctly, if you do it consistently. So don't worry if you do feel like, rowing at 1200 calories per hour or whatever it is, 1200 meters, feels like you're pulling a truck, and for the first few times, it will get easier, it will get better, but you got to be thinking this is going to be something that's going to help me in the long run. Okay, there's links to that if you want to talk about it. But like Tom said, don't be, right at the start, he said you can't be just trying to hammer it zone 5 all the time, anaerobic threshold. That's how I build my engine because I want to keep pushing harder. It's not about that. You got to improve the base endurance capacity before you earn the right to go up this ladder. Okay, if you don't, and you're not, yes, you get a bit more powerful, but power's a finite thing. You're going to be, you're only going to be using.
It's like trying to max out your snatch every session. Like you're not going to get better at snatch. Like you need to spend time in the positions. You need to spend time, under the bar. You need to improve your back squat, your overhead squat, and all the bits that unlock you then. Working through a program and maxing out again. It's exactly the same here. Like you've got to do the groundwork, spend time in each area to kind of unlock the next one above it.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't put that on here because I've actually just thought about it. So, zone 1 to 3 is where you might want to be thinking about doing some fasted training. These are your adaptive sessions, okay? And then zone 4 and 5 is where you want to be thinking about kind of fueling it. These are the ones that you want to be putting in a little bit beforehand. Because we're going to be pushing the threshold, okay, and maxing out. Same with your snatch. Again, like you say, you got to earn the right, and you've got to be doing this work. You can't just kind of keep jumping to the top of the tree all the time. So how do you improve your anaerobic? To remember with the higher intensity at the end of that graph. Okay, look, the number one thing is you've got to train the correct intensity. You got to be on that limit. There's lots of scientific testing that you can do in terms of finding your anaerobic threshold, but everyone knows it's the time when you start to question what you're doing. Why am I doing this? So I've still got this many repeats to do. One of the biggest things from a nutrition point of view is eating enough carbohydrates, because like we spoke about, you saw on that graph, as we slowly increase intensity, you cannot utilize fat at a real high intensity, and at your threshold, most of your energy will be coming from glycogen and carbohydrates. If you don't have enough in the tank, okay, you might be able to get a few repeats in and intervals in, but you're not going to be able to push the boundaries and push hard repeatedly because you're going to fatigue, because you don't have enough fuel in the tank. Okay, so really be thinking about eating enough carbs. Now, this can be pre-workout. Okay, If you train in the afternoon, train in the morning, whenever that is, pre-workout, or it can be the day before, the couple of days before, to ensure that you have enough glycogen in your system to be able to deal with it. Okay, this is very important if you really do want to train fasted first thing in the morning. It's the only time you can do it. Then eating enough the days before, carbohydrate loading effectively, that strategy is really, really important. Tom, have you ever done have you ever kind of not bonked, but have you ever kind of done sessions where you just haven't
Oh no, I've bonked.
Yeah.
I've bonked running and cycling.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, that's a kind of another like video, like very, very endurance based. But I've also had that moment where for me, it's like, I know, like I get a skill breakdown.
Yeah.
And then, I'm half every rep, then you're working twice as hard to like link toes to bar or barbell cycling and things like that, where you just know that I just haven't got enough fuel in the tank.
Yeah.
And we'll touch on like 2-a-days, because I think my main culprit is often when getting my strategy wrong for 2-a-days. I noticed that that's where that kind of stems from.
Yeah, it's an interesting point there. Like, so we're talking about that being metabolically flexible. Tom said it there, like that skill breakdown. If you're under fueling, okay, or you utilize carbohydrates at a very low intensity, okay, because you're not metabolically flexible, or you haven't built this engine, this baseline, then if you're doing something like a 100-calorie row at the start of a workout, and then you've got to do a 15-minute AMRAP, if you're using carbs through that 100-calorie workout, 100-calorie row, whatever, and then it's a long workout after, a chipper after, a open workout style, then that's when you can get this like depletion. And what we want to be doing is, that's what we call about building your engine. You should be able to have that efficiency at the start of using fats as a primary energy source, and then have enough carbohydrates there so that you don't get what Tom said, like a skill breakdown, or you're just like, I've just got nothing left, I just literally can't do this. Or you can do it, but you have to be taking 30 to 45 seconds in between each rep.
Faffing. I'm
got to earn the right. We've all been there. So you got to earn the right. This is it. You can't just keep hammering it at your anaerobic capacity. Look, consistently training is the biggest thing. You've got to be on that threshold a few times. But the programming does this for you, so just gonna constantly be doing it. But when we say follow the program, again, using nutrition to fuel that, to not just get through. You can't be just surviving these sessions. You can get through aerobic stuff relatively okay, building that baseline, because we have effectively an infinite number of calories to use as energy, but we only have a finite amount of carbohydrates. Okay, so the aerobic stuff you can always do. You can always kind of do that stuff, zone 1, zone 2. But if you don't have your nutrition on point, then you're going to fail with the anaerobic stuff. And again, specific foods and supplements to help improve that. So again, just kind of talking about that. So what the aim is to shift this line a little bit further up. Okay, so we now are using primarily fat metabolism. Okay, it's not solely, primarily at a moderate intensity instead of just a low. If we can shift that there, all of a sudden everything else shifts across, and our anaerobic threshold potentially comes a little bit higher, because we have enough more carbohydrates in there, primarily sugar, carbohydrate metabolism. And if we work at this intensity, really fuel our performance sessions so that our body has the machinery, it builds the machinery to be able to get a higher anaerobic threshold, then all of a sudden these two lines shift higher, so we can work at higher intensity aerobically and high intensity anaerobically. Okay, so that's how we talk about manipulating carbohydrates and and calories. So just to quick recap, first session. Okay, so like training low, there's a link to an article about this in a minute. So morning fasted training, we talked about this. We don't necessarily think that this is a good strategy, especially if you're doing 2 a day, no carbs during recovery, but we will talk about how to do that potentially in a future video. Long training without carbohydrate intake, again, can be like faster training. Like Tom said, he maybe does 30-40 minutes in the morning, longer, slower intensity training, training twice a day, and then sleeping in a low glycogen state. Again, we'll talk about that in the future. Adaptive for performance. Okay. Tom, do you ever do morning sessions where it's like, right, you got to really push? Or is it always kind of a bit like...
No, I have done, like, and I followed the JST bike, and they've got like add-on like rowing and bike programs. So me and a couple of guys from the gym did the bike programs, and again, we would look at the programming and decide actually one of those sessions a week would be a performance session.
Yeah.
It would be, okay, we've got some big numbers to hit here.
Yeah.
What's the best, how do we go into that session? How do we get the most out of the session? Well, that's where we kind of flick the switch.
Yeah.
And right, this is the goal now, is performance. The goal is not creating adaptation and kind of earning the right. Like, we're going to see if we can, what we can get out of the session. So that would be then thinking about a little bit of pre-workout nutrition, circulating energy, like I say, just to help with that performance side of it, knowing when to go and when to ease back as well.
Awesome. That's it. Training fasted, training low. You have to think about it. Like, be thinking about that is the best thing to do, as opposed to just be doing something across the board. That's how you're going to, really make some kind of big key changes. Now, workout nutrition. Now, I've highlighted intro there because Tom's talking about, like, right, put some pre-workout in. Now, if you are doing, a very long session, sometimes we do 2 a day, but you might tag it on. Sometimes people kind of put every session into one. So it's not just the first session. If you're going to do that, guys, potentially doing the more aerobic stuff at the start and then using an intra workout to make sure that you're getting the most out of any workout or strength-based piece or hypertrophy, whatever, at the end. So making sure that you do, again, training low or improving your engine on maybe 75 or 60% of your sessions, and then be thinking about fueling the other 40%, 50%, and potentially using the intra workout if you're going to do one session a day. Look, we don't need to talk about hydration because it's just the basic. Don't overlook it. It's such an important thing. And like we spoke about, eating enough the day before. You don't need to train in a lower carb or a really low state. Okay, we're not trying to be thinking about going ketogenic and focusing on that, because we still need carbohydrates for those higher intensity exercises. Okay. So you need to make sure that if you're going to train fasted, you potentially can eat enough the day before. And like Tom always says, think about the bigger picture. Look at that bird's eye view, thinking about what you're going to be doing then in the afternoon as well, not just on that first session. Okay, really, really important. Second session, Tom, you hit 2 a days now. I'm a father. I don't have the luxury to be able to do that, unfortunately. So talking about second sessions or 2 a days, mate, how do you approach it? How should the guys approach it?
Again, you got to look bigger picture across the whole day. If you're going, full whack, if you think, right, if you've kind of gone off in this, okay, I'm going to train low, but I'm still going to push really hard in all those rowing intervals in the morning. I've done 10 rounds of 500 meters, 1 minute rest, and then we get to that second session in the afternoon, and we're a little bit behind with our nutrition, or we haven't well recovered. And then that second session kind of becomes a slog and we just get by, or we struggle to hit our percentages. And then, again, across the week, if that happened once a week, could that happen 3, 4, 5 times a week? And then we don't make any progress. Yeah. So again, it's kind of looking at, like, right, where do I want to make progress in the week? Yes, we're on an engine bias, but we still enjoy picking up a barbell, doing gymnastics, etc. So we want to perform well when it counts. So just a little bit of planning. That's all I would say is work back from that second session.
Yeah.
And understand, right, obviously I'm going to have something after session 1. Is this going to give me enough? The answer is probably no before session 2. So am I going to go one meal and another meal, depending on time of day, or is it meal and then like another snack? Like, particularly if we've trained fasted, your post-workout nutrition is really important. It's helping you recover from session 1, but it's gearing you up again for session 2. So that would be the biggest thing I would say, to just help your overall recovery in that whole day, because then we don't want to wake up tomorrow and have just general like muscle soreness or, any kind of general fatigue. Making sure we're eating enough going into that second session. We're going to be able to hopefully get through it, hit our numbers, hit our percentages, and improve our recovery. Like I say, if we've got enough fuel in the tank to do so.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it is that looking at, bigger picture. Tom's talk about the day, but talk about the week as well. You got to be thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow. Like, if you want to, your Tuesday session and maybe Wednesday session is your performance focus, don't backload your calories. Don't chase it. You know, you've got to be thinking about what you're going to be doing that afternoon, that next day. And if you can distribute your intake, especially from a protein and carbohydrate point of view, you're going to make a big difference to your recovery and performance. Trust me, guys. So manipulating volume, Tom spoke about this before, choosing potentially that second session, if you're going to split it and doing the more, you know, the strength-based stuff or lifting or whatever, often there's a bit of an option, 4 to 6 sets. And this is about kind of guiding your choices here. The guys give you that for a reason. Now, if you pushed yourself really hard, you buried it, and you know that you've got to go again tomorrow, then you might want to choose the lower sets, because the primary aim of the engine bias is to get better at the endurance side of things. So don't be doing too many extras that are going to impact your performance the next day. Okay, so you can manipulate the volume, choosing the sets, choosing the, you know, whatever, and helping you to maximize that endurance based session, that engine based focus session. So make sure that you do that. Again, check out the previous video on double days that we've done. It'd be really, really useful. Just to wrap things up, guys, I've got some foods and supplements. So here is some foods that to kind of really focus on. Now, these all have very high levels of something called nitrates, okay, or and that helps to increase nitric oxide in the body. This has been proven to help with aerobic capacity, you know, helps blood flow, delivery of oxygen in the working muscles. So really, guys, focusing on getting these in. Now, obviously, a lot of people think beetroot is the number one thing, and it is. It's very high. But so is carrots, so is pomegranate juice. That, you know, using these things, I put pomegranate juice in there because I think it's a really easy way to be able to get some carbohydrates as well. It has very high levels of antioxidants, and actually lots of research coming out on pomegranates at the moment about it being very, very good for strength gains, recovery. So keep your eyes peeled on that. But, you know, these types of things, guys, like, you know, green veg, lots of really kind of good benefits, as well as increasing kind of nitric oxide. So make sure that you're getting these into your diet. And Tom, mostly following the plant-based diet apart from the fish, smashing a load of these in regularly.
Yeah, particularly I think with things that they're like green leafy veg, carrots, cinnamon, I think they're things that we all kind of probably have quite readily available. But maybe we just forget to kind of like add them in. So we always talk about, like, you know, 2 or 3 colors a meal. So, you know, we've got carrot, beetroot, veg, whether we kind of got to grate it, we've got to sneak it in, whether you roast the tray off a couple of times a week, so you've just got veg in the, you know, obviously check out the videos we've done around kind of, you know, meal prep and batch cooking. And I think, yeah, pomegranate juice is one that, obviously, again, particularly if we've got high calorie targets, if we're training twice a day, and we're, you know, again, liquid nutrition is really useful for a way to kind of bump our calories up without feeling too heavy or bloated in between sessions or around our training.
Yeah, definitely. The other kind of benefit of green leafy veg as well, especially kind of spinach and kale and stuff like this, is iron levels. And iron is definitely something, guys, to you know, touch on. Female you know, members, definitely be thinking about kind of potentially supplementing with it around your menstrual cycle. But guys as well, don't be thinking that, you know, that we're not potentially kind of you know, in need of benefit, or can find benefit from having an iron supplement in as well. I think you can you know, you can get enough in food, red meats, green leafy veg, you know, stuff like this. So making sure that you are, you know, boxing off nitrates and iron, really good, easy way to get, you know, from your food, as opposed to kind of taking a supplement. Females definitely look to kind of potentially supplement for, you know, maybe kind of week before menstruation, week after. Be really, really sensible thing to do. But get your iron blood levels tested, number one thing. So, you know, talking about dietary nitrates, like, because it's a precursor to nitric oxide, helps blood, you know, oxygen delivery. Thinking about building our engine, we need the right kind of fuel source. Okay, we need the right carrier, you know, to make sure the oxygen is getting to the working muscles. It's been proven, like I said, there's lots of research on it, guys. High intensity exercise tolerance, so that anaerobic, that threshold. Okay, so improving that threshold that you can tolerate, improving cycling, time trial as well, so not just like the length, but also actually like performance based stuff, so a bit higher intensity, increasing time to exhaustion, so delaying that time to fatigue, it's been shown to do, reducing the oxygen cost of running as well. So it has a lot of carryover. There's lots of stuff on rowing as well. So it, you know, when we're talking about building the engine, these types of things carry over no matter what kind of machine or whatever we're doing. Okay. Now, beetroot juice as well, getting a lot of research currently, same as pomegranate. This is just really good study for CrossFitters. It's acute effects of beetroot juice supplementation on intermittent high intensity exercise. So basically, barbell cycling, repeated intervals. Not just kind of sitting on an exercise bike at 150 watts and just ticking over for 2 hours. This is really, really applicable for us. So really, really good, guys. And we've got some content on beetroot as well, but you can take it acutely 2-3 hours before your session. You can load it for kind of a couple of days beforehand. But the biggest thing that we found from the research is that you need to increase your overall intake from food. The responders were the guys that didn't have these types of things in their food, in their diets. So make sure you get them in. Study to look at if you really want to geek out. And supplementation, okay? So look, there's a couple of things. So sometimes people talk about MCT oil. I don't really like adding stuff to coffee or do whatever, but there might be products that you take that have MCT oil in. Some research that I found helps spare glycogen, like we talked about, that muscle glycogen sparing for low intensities, and it helps to reduce lactate buildup. Potentially useful if you have ever used it. It's now in like the drops with like CBD oil, and you can get it in MCT oil, or you can get it in coffees and bits and pieces. Caffeine, happy days. What doesn't caffeine do, Tom? So we always
liquid gold.
Yeah, and beta alanine and X endurance, the tablets, the lactate tablets, really good stuff. Okay, they're the two that we probably look at most for improving your anaerobic threshold, as well as obviously getting nitrates and stuff from your food. T, are you taking anything at the moment? Any supplementation?
I am, but nothing kind of engine specific based. With beta alanine, I'll tend to probably take it leading up into the Open. It's not something you can just take the night before. It's something that you do have to load up. But I'm not a big fan of the kind of skin tingle and everything, so I will just split the dose across the day. So it's something that's just kind of in your system. It's not something you have to take like around your training. It's just something to kind of load. But yeah, I will take it maybe like around the Open or anything kind of competition based. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, Tom's absolutely right there. You do need to load it. You can load it in about 2 to 3 weeks, but ideally 4 to 6 weeks. So if you're watching this 6 weeks before the Open, get it in you. The X Endurance as well, really, really good product. Tiny bit expensive, but some really good research on, again, improving your engine. So guys, they're the kind of key things. Obviously, there's lots of different other supplements that we can use, but these are the kind of basics for improving your endurance stuff. From there, 2 articles for you to click on. One, all about training low, and a little bit about carbohydrate manipulation, again, for endurance. And as this is a really good graph, as the session gets longer, what you should be using, how to manipulate your carb intake in terms of the actual type. So glucose, fructose, what do we want to be using? So really cool article to check out there. Fantastic, guys. Look, this is the kind of kickoff one for the engine bias. We say we're going to lots of different other ones to help you delve into specific areas, specific supplementation. But if there's anything else you want us to cover, anything you want to need further advice on, then just message us, reach out to us on social media or via the hub, and then we'll get going from there. T, anything else to add? No, just remember to earn the right, isn't it? Spend time, do the boring stuff. Could then earn the right, because when you do then pull the pin, you'll be in a better state and be able to perform better. Yeah, that's a very good point, the phone tone, because endurance stuff, it takes a long time, and it can often be it's one of the things that you have to just spend a bit more time, like volume side of things, isn't it? It's maybe not the sexiest thing to be doing, sitting on the rower or the bike or running. We all want to be snatching and doing 8-minute AMRAPs, but sometimes we do need to, like say, a little bit low and slow, and as T said, earn the right. But guys, hope you found this helpful. And like I said, reach out to us for any further info.